everyone, and welcome to the first episode of B-List Boosters. And welcome, Clyde Hall.
Hello.
So, Clyde, why don't you tell me and the audience at home a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and give us a spiel.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me as your first guest on B-List Boosters. I'm an independent author. I live in the south part of Illinois. It's more central, but when people talk about it, they don't realize Illinois goes as far as we live. Because I always think of Chicago.
So far.
So I have been a comic book fan for a long time, and kind of, before it was cool, I thought they were cool.
Comic book hipster.
Yeah. But now I'm an independent author, and I'm the creator of a character called B-Man. And his first appearance was in Pulp Reality #1 from Stormgate Press. It's available on Amazon. And we just won a couple of awards, Pulp Factory Awards. Thank you. The cover won an award, and as Best Anthology of 2020, it won the Pulp Factory Award, which is pretty prestigious. And one of the reviews I read today on Amazon, it's the latest review, said there are several people writing a new pulp today, but this represents the best.
Yes.
And yeah, so I'm on that team, and I feel very, very humbled by being part of it. One of our friends, Brian K. Morris, is also one of the contributors to this. So it's a good group to work with. I am an award-winning audio drama scripter. I won a contest over the winter, and it's being made into an audio drama. So very cool about that. I am part of the Rising Tide Broadcast Network. I'm one quarter of the Comic Book Spectrum weekly review team. That's on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Central on both Facebook, and then it's also on YouTube. So tune in. We do a review of a comic book from the previous month. So it's not like it's a weekly review, but it's not all new, absolutely new comics, but they're all things that you should be able to find at most of your better local comic shops. So
Yes, support your local comic stores.
Yes.
Definitely tune in. It's a good show. Good show run by good people.
Thank you.
And how did you get into comics and superheroes?
I got into comic books and superheroes because I love to read. And Brian Morris, he learned how to say the word invulnerable from comic books. I kind of did the same thing. I used them to learn to read along with golden books and things. And my father was very ill when I was a child. He was older. And he was not the guy that was going to go take you fishing or take you out to play baseball or anything. And I think I was looking for strong male role models. And comic books definitely, especially comic books of the 60s, they had that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was the real attraction. But then I'll never forget the one night that really cemented it. He and I were home alone by our mom worked, so we were home alone. And big storm came through, and it was very scary, and the power went out. It was completely dark, and he was not in a shape to get to lights, and I only knew where a couple of lights were. It was a real scary evening, especially when you're 4 or 5 years old. And my mom was working at the hospital at the time, and she had gotten into the habit of getting the hospital auxiliary comic books that they had there for sale, used comics, and she would bring them home. And when she came home, of course, I was very relieved to see her, and she gave me a copy of The Phantom Stranger from DC Comics. And it was about this very dark spirit that had come over the town, and here was this guy that was a hero, and he fought it off. It was sort of like reality blending with fantasy in that moment. And I still have that comic book. That's what really, there are other things that were really big with comics. one of the first things I remember seeing of television was a guy flying through the air. And I was like 2.5, 3 years old, and they were rerunning the classic Superman show. I didn't know who it was, but it didn't take me long to figure out that the guy in the comic books that she was bringing me was that guy.
I love
So that's how I came to become a comic book fan. And it just got worse from there.
it. Get your kids into comics so they'll never have money for drugs.
It's great when you have little kids that, especially if they've seen the movies and they find out you know something about these characters that weren't in the movies, and they'll ask you things, and you become like this source. And I'll never forget Sunday school. Like, Mr. Klein, what's the toughest Avenger? Who's the one that? And this was way before Endgame. This was the middle of the thing, and I'm like, Ant-Man.
You're like, what?
What? And I gave him my reasons. And after Endgame and stuff came out, one day I got a message, and it's like, Mr. Klein, I just saw Endgame. Uh-huh. You know who saved the day? Well, kind of Ant-Man in a way, right? You were right. He was the key to everything.
Oh my gosh, that's adorable.
So yeah, I get that. It's great when you can see another generation of comic book fans, whether it's based on the movies or comics or both. I see a lot of people that read the comics now because of the movies.
Yes.
So yeah.
Which is a big lesson for anyone who tries to gatekeep, which most of our friends don't. But don't ever look down on someone just because they love a character based on the live action. Like, that's a lot of times the gateway in. That's how I got in.
So what film? Huh?
Oh, were you asking what film? So Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman was, and the X-Men animated and Batman the Animated Series was the start of my love for superheroes. But what really got me reading comics was the Birds of Prey TV show, which I'm still sad that it was short-lived. And I know a lot of people disagree with me, and I get it. I get the complaints about Batman, but I feel like they were gonna, about Batman abandoning Gotham. But I feel like they were gonna explain that better, and I feel like they were gonna not justify it. They were gonna. He was gonna come back. He was gonna come back, and yeah. But so that was the first trade I bought, was this one.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which, really good place to start. Like, I bought a few single issues here and there. What I did prior to that was I would look up, or all the characters that I loved, I would kind of look up on Wikipedia and figure out what storylines were crucial to them, and then I would go shopping on Mile High Comics and bring back issues. But I didn't always realize that it was like 1 of 5 or 2 of 5 that I was getting, because it just wasn't, I just wasn't super in the know. And I was super scared to go into a comic shop, because I was like, well, are they going to look at me and be like, you don't know what you're talking about, get out of here. But so I think I'll go first, because this was a segue.
Yes.
So through the Birds of Prey show, I was more of a fan of Huntress, and of course Batgirl I loved since the Batman animated series, and then I loved Oracle. And I started reading this comic, and I fell in love with this lady right here, Black Canary, and just, she is such a great character, such a well-rounded character. Like, she has so many layers to her, and I really resonated with me. And Gail Simone, of course, is just an amazing writer. Yeah, everyone loves Gail Simone. How can you not? Like, and so I fell in love with her through this trade, and then from there I was like, well, and I had also fallen in love with her because it was the easiest cosplay I could put together my first year of Metropolis.
I follow her on Twitter, and the other day she said, I just had somebody ask me, are you the Gail Simone? And I sent back, people were saying what she should have said back to her. And I'm like, you said, I am the Gale and the Simone. I'm both.
I love her Twitter. Her Twitter by itself is a work of art.
Mhm.
Just, yeah. And actually, like from cosplaying Black Canary, because it was an easy to put together costume, I also kind of fell in love with the character that way too, even before I read anything about her. But yeah, so that book was the first book I fell in love with, Black Canary. And I think it's your turn to talk about what character you're here to talk about.
Well, our shirts are giveaways because you got your Black Canary shirt, right?
Spoilers! Yes, they are dead giveaways. I love it.
And I have the Grant's Gym t-shirt. Now, part of our B-list affection is, you know, it's great to see characters like Spider-Man and Iron Man on the big screen, Superman given big screen treatments. But when you love a B-lister, it's somebody that has potential. And you've kind of realized that because Black Canary has been elevated in several live action formats now.
I
And
fell
animated.
in love with her. The only live action was that, was it 1980s that they had the Legends of the Superhero specials?
1978, I believe.
1978. Okay, I'm gonna find. I actually really love the costumes, but and then she did get the live action treatment in the Birds of Prey show, but that was a whole different.
Right.
I won't get sidetracked by that just yet. Maybe we'll get to that. We'll save that. But other than that,
but I'm waiting for my B-list love.
Yes. But most people didn't know who she was outside of comics fans.
Right.
And now she is pretty much a household name.
Right. Yes.
She isn't really calling us a B-list fan anymore, but she goes with Ted Grant, and we'll discuss their relationship later. But she goes with Ted Grant, and she started out as a B-lister. So my show, my rules, it counts.
Right.
All right.
But did you want my guy? Okay.
Yes.
My guy is called Wildcat. And the first time I read a Wildcat story was this is a reproduction, but this is a 100-page super spectacular where DC reprinted a whole bunch of Golden Age things. And this had a Neil Adams cover that had some characters I had never seen before.
Oh, Neil Adams.
And he had a whole bunch of Justice Society characters, and I didn't know who they were, but that was okay because they had a key on the inside to who everybody was. And there was this guy that looked like kind of a rough and tumble bruiser guy in a cat suit. And then I found this story, and it was a never before published story from the Golden Age, Wildcat versus Huntress. Now, this is not the Huntress you were talking about. This is when she was a villain, Golden Age villain. Completely different character.
I remember reading about that version of Huntress.
Yes, and I don't know whether it was because, and the usually back then artwork really grabbed me. And this is John Chester Kozlak, not a big name as artist, but there was something about that guy in his skin tight Wildcat outfit. He's a boxer, and he doesn't seem to have powers, but he has a certain flair. And then the female that he's fighting also is mainly a physical kind of character. I guess Catwoman, Batman, you see this a bit. I didn't get the feeling that like they were flirty. It was more like she's going to kill him. She wants to kill him really badly. And that was just unique. And also male hero, female villain, female serious villain, really set to chop his head off at one point in this story. It's just a little 7-page story, but it got my attention. And not too long after that, a year later, Secret Origins, Nick Cardy Wildcat. And I got to see for the first time I found out that Bill Finger had created him, which is the co-creator of Batman. And Erwin Hassan was the artist. And again, the artwork, because there was something just very cool about this guy that was dressed up as a big panther kind of cat beating on criminals. Now I found out how he was a boxer that had been framed for murder, and saw a kid reading a Green Lantern comic and found out about mystery men, and decided that he would disguise himself because he was wanted by the police for this wrongly accused murder. So he disguised himself and to clear his name. And then he decided to continue on. And the cowl that Erwin Hassan in the early stories did looked different than what he did later on. But as a kid, this to me looked like the perfect name, Wildcat. This is a guy you don't want to tangle with.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like a really hacked off cat.
Yeah.
He is serious, and he just beats the stuffings out of bad guys. For somebody that worked on Batman and created some of the things that go with Batman, Wildcat's simple. He doesn't have a utility belt. He has a cat cycle or a cattle cycle, which Nick Cardy must have wanted to do a book of him because he did several covers with Wildcat. I would love to have seen a whole Cardy story. He does the best catacycle ever. He had the catacycle. But something else got my attention too, because I always thought he was still kind of, he's a thumper. He thumps people. Well, he's actually quite a good boxer. He's a world champion boxer. So that's not just being a thumper, but also there was a part of his origin that, I don't know, it settled in with me, where his father was a very learned man, but he had been afraid and apparently preyed upon, bullied. He was going to make sure his son never was. So he trained Ted, had people train him to be an athlete so that he could be assertive. And he was best at boxing. That was what he was wanting to get out of high school and go into college. People go, oh, he's going to be a pro boxer. No, it says, no, Ted wants to be a doctor. He wants to go pre-med. So one of the things about Wildcat is he's smart. He is not just, and ends up, his parents die, he doesn't have money to go to college. Times are tough. And he ends up becoming a boxer to pay the bills. And he's really, really good at it. So whenever you think about Wildcat, he's not just a masked mystery man. He's actually smart. And in the best Wildcat stories, you go, oh, he's good. He does beat on you. Does beat on you, beat on the bad guys, but he's also a ring general about how he goes about doing things. That sets him apart from a lot of it. He doesn't have gimmicks too much, it sets him apart from some of the other characters. That's what got my attention as a kid.
Yeah. And he needs to have his moment.
And we have the Yolanda Montez character in Stargirl is a Wildcat. She's like the second generation Wildcat. So he's kind of getting there. We've seen some flashbacks with him. He was in Smallville in the Justice Society of America episode, because that's where when he's remembered, it's because, wasn't he one of those old Justice Society of America guys? That's how
like Smallville did the Justice Society justice. Pun intended.
Yes.
He was also in a few episodes of Arrow. That was kind of awful.
Yeah, not the best, but they've had him on Batman Brave and the Bold, and he was in Justice League Unlimited, and some of the
He really shone there.
Yes, Young Justice episodes are a couple of those too, I think. So they actually had him as the PE coach for DC Superhero Girls too.
I love it. And he did pop up in so DC's doing this line, you and I have talked about this off screen, but it's been a while. DC's doing the line of their young adult comic books geared towards like middle grade readers. And so he had a really big role in the Black Canary book, which made me very happy. And that's a good segue into why we're talking about these two characters together, because they have quite the history where he was a teammate with Black Canary Senior. And so then he trained the younger Black Canary, which is the version that I identify with most. And he's basically like an uncle to her. But Wildcat in modern comics is responsible for training most of the heroes, including Batman.
Yes, for most, and pardon me while I take a sip from my Wildcat cup, because when you're a B-lister fan, you get your merch where you can find it or make it. And this is a 1977 Slurpee cup that actually they happen to merchandise Wildcat on it. So, but yes, if you want a modern take on, well, how tough was he? He trained Bruce Wayne in the art of boxing. Not all of the things that he knows, but Bruce Wayne went to the best people, went to Ted Grant to learn how to box. So.
Yes. And in Justice League Unlimited, they kind of touch on that, where he's training a lot of the incoming heroes through the Justice League. And I think they established that he trained Bruce Wayne in Justice League Unlimited also. So yeah, he trained Batman. And again, Black Canary, and Black Canary is widely recognized as one of the best hand-to-hand combatants in the DC universe alongside Batman. So thank you, Uncle Ted. And he just,
some of the stories they've had together, he is very much a father figure to her.
yes.
Now, it's possible, and this ties in with the Justice Society titles, the later ones. It looks like he had something to do with Catwoman's getting her off the street and teaching her how to fight. But that one slid into, according to Chuck Dixon, that became a bit more involved in some of his other training, and they were an item, apparently.
Ew.
I know. That's what most people say. It's like, oh, ew, why did he have to go there?
Cats.
A few of the things, he was a Brave and the Bold star a lot, because Bob Haney apparently liked to write him. Now, a friend of mine used to go, I think Bob Haney hated him because he's always down on his luck and he's retired, and but we still have these cool Nick Cardy covers. So I don't care.
No, that's a sign of a writer really liking a character is when they torture them.
I guess.
As a writer, I can say yes.
And he got to put the smackdown on the Joker before, so that was cool,
Nice.
Because of the Brave and the Bold appearance. And then we have the Batman Wildcat crossover that Dixon wrote. And really, they did a nice job, despite the ooh factor. They did a Catwoman Wildcat crossover miniseries, and it was sweet. It was not ooh, it was not overdone, but you got the feeling the street level characters, they worked really well together.
Right.
So anyway.
Very, very interesting. And yeah, he's been a staple of the Justice Society, multiple incarnations,
but so has Black Canary.
So has Black Canary. Yep. Her mother was the original golden age Justice Society, and then Black Canary Jr., as we'll call her, were when the Justice Society reformed, and which I love. So one thing I really love about DC is how many families they have, and that dynamic of passing on the mantle. Like, yeah, there's certain characters that they don't really let get old, like Batman and Superman, but I love the Black Canaries pass on the mantle, and I love the mother-daughter thing because you don't see that as much pretty much nowhere do you see a mother passing on her mantle to the daughter, except for the Silk Spectres, who were based on Black Canary. Not solely, but
Right.
they,
There's an element of that there, yes.
and so that makes for a really interesting just twist, because a lot of times you see it's more a male father or father figure passing it on. But
You touched on something about Wildcat right there too. You got Batman and Superman can never grow old.
yes.
So we have Robins that were Robins for like 60 seconds because how many Robins do we have? How many?
They all
And
look
then-
alike though. They all look like mini versions of Bruce, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, but you know, you get to where, okay, we've got Tim Drake and we got
Dick Grayson, Jason Todd.
Jason Todd, Damian Wayne now, and we've got in the future Carrie, and we got
Stephanie Brown.
You got also Batgirl and all the other, you know, several different versions of Batgirl. And just it's like because he can never grow old, you know, we keep adding Robins or secondary characters, and they just, you know, how long did he train them? Must have been very short because well, Wildcat trained these people. There was a story that they wrote in the JSA title. Well, actually, it was in Justice League, where he helped Zatara on a case back in the 40s, and he got cursed. He was going to like become a cat, and Zatara stopped the curse, but it gave him 9 lives. He didn't reveal this until he's in his 50s, and he gets killed on a Justice League Justice Society crossover, and he comes right back. And they're like, "What? What did you?" I'm on, and he was on like life number 3. And they're like, "You never told anybody that." And he goes, "Yeah, because good fighters don't give away their trump cards. They don't give away
Yeah.
you know." So he can do this and even, you know, be somewhat, it could be acceptable, I suppose. If you're going to be somebody that is immortal to a degree, you're going to have girls that are younger than you. So it even gives a less you factor to Selena. But it makes sense for him to have trained all these people because he is longer lived than normal.
Right.
So I like that. And then they try to get rid of it by killing him off a bunch of times. But I think if the curse is there, all you got to do is have somebody like, I don't know, maybe Zatanna go, "Boop, it's back." Have 9 more. Have 9 more, Ted. I don't care.
Zatanna is kind of a good plot fixer because her magic can be whatever the plot demands.
So is there a penultimate Black Canary story that just, is there one that really rises above all the others that makes you go, I saw the potential early on. This is one of the issues that really shows it.
Well, I mean, aside from, because my very first experience was the Cream of the Crop. That was like it. It's like, it's never gonna get better than this, but I would say I'm a huge fan of this version of the Justice League of America, the Dwayne McDuffie at Ed Benes era, because, and this takes place shortly after Black Canary's run with Birds of Prey during Gail Simone's era. So she kind of graduates and moves on to, not that graduates is the right word, but she moves on to running the Justice League. And she gets to be chairwoman of the JLA. And it's really fun to see her come into her own that way. And just the family dynamics come into play. And I'm such a sucker for family dynamics because instead of having Oliver Green Arrow on the team, is Roy Harper, who is currently Red Arrow on the team. So Dinah has her surrogate adopted son on the team, and we deal with those family dynamics. Oliver's at home babysitting Roy's daughter, which I kind of love, like Oliver playing stay-at-home grandpa.
Didn't they do this with the Impossibles or the
Incredibles.
The Incredible thing? Yeah, the second Incredibles movie. Didn't they do
yes.
this?
Same thing, same thing. Only Oliver was totally okay with it. He was like, yeah, go for it. You at least for a while, until editorial dictated that Oliver and Diana needed to break up. And then the way they did that was Oliver started his own shadow Justice League with Hal Jordan, so they could do things a more brutal way behind Diana's back. That was a whole mess. The era, not so much. That came out long after, or several books after. And
I thought you were going to say until the child started to develop powers, like Jack. That's good.
No, sadly, Leon was killed off brutally and then just retconned out of existence. So, damn you, DC.
Yeah.
But it was
Well,
it's good for a while there. There were a few years that were really good to Black Canary and the whole Arrow family. But
I remember when she first crossed over, because they didn't make a distinction between daughter and mother, crossed over from Earth 2 and began seeing Oliver Queen. I was a little kid when she began to become part of the Justice League from their crossovers with the Justice Society. And I always loved the character. I thought she had a lot of potential. And then they gave her the Sonic Scream, because up to that point she was just a powered or a non-powered fighter.
right.
But then they gave her the Sonic Scream powers. And so I've been there for most of her. But yes, seeing her as the chairwoman of the Justice League of America. Oh, yes.
Such a good moment. And some of they voted on it, and some of the members were like, that's why they voted for Black Canary. They're like, well, it's about time. She's earned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Exactly.
And I haven't even followed the character as long as someone like you has. But
Right. But yeah, we want to see. We want to see that. And DC's given us some of those moments. So as much as we go, why did you do? Why? How come? But there are moments when
they're good moments. So what do I do for Wildcat?
Now, for Wildcat, they came up with this new Justice Society of America. Very cool. And he's way over here.
Oh.
That's okay, but he's still part of the lineup because they have new members or legacy members. And
Yep.
there's
my
Black Canary right there. Yes. And you got the Jack Knight Starman. But you've got some of the old guys too to help them, to found the new Justice Society of America. I was very excited for this book. And they did not let me down. It was a real team book. It didn't focus on just one character. It focused on all characters and people got the spotlight. And then they had Mordru, who has always been a Legion of Superheroes bad guy. When he was younger, he was seeking mystical powers and the Justice Society had to stop him. Oddly enough, some of their members had a lot of magical powers they could use. So that's why they became a threat to him. And in the fight against him, Wildcat, who does not back down from a fight, ended up getting his arm broken by Mordru. So that was issue 9. In issue 10, we have Ted. Issue 10 of the Justice Society of America is the thing that it is the moment when all of my hopes for Wildcat, from the Chuck Dixon tough guy writings, all the way through the really kind of misguided Power Girl versus Wildcat back and forths, not good, of the super squad of the 70s and into the 80s. This moment has Ted Grant with a broken arm. He's sitting in the bathtub at Justice Society headquarters, taking a soak. Everybody else is on a mission. He's just holding down the fort. And he's called up Selina Kyle. And he's talking about, I don't really know if they'd be very happy with me doing a flirty phone call with a supervillain from Justice Society headquarters. This is kind of probably not a good idea. And then he gets attacked by the Injustice Society of America. the new one, because you have a rise of a new Justice Society, you got to have a rise of a new Injustice Society. And
In all
so
things, there must be a balance.
that's right. You have Ted Grant, and he faces Johnny Sorrow, major mystical villain, Count Vertigo, Icicle, the Golden or Killer Wasp, Tigress, who is the daughter of the Huntress that he used to fight, Blackbriar Thorn, who is like a reconstituted druid with magic powers, and Geomancer.
Nice.
And they need to steal something from the museum. And he's in the way, so Johnny Sorrow says, take care of him. They've already got an arrow stuck in his back from their initial attack, and he runs. And Icicle goes, what about Wildcat? It's like, I've got to go find this thing, handle this. Well, what about him? He's Wildcat. And he's like, he's an unarmed man in an Egyptian cotton bath towel. I don't think you need me. See to it. See to it. So you got Wildcat. He's a normal powered guy, except that he does have extra lives, but he's just a guy. He's going to probably need him. He says at the beginning, he goes, I only spent 3 lives so far, but this may be a hat trick day because these guys they're tough.
Yeah.
And he takes everything that he knows about the building, and he takes these younger bad guys to school. He doesn't care that they have powers. He uses them against each other. And you find out why he probably could have done fine as a doctor in pre-med, because he is a ring general, a strategist. He pokes fun at them, and they poke fun back, but he's the one that ends up laughing last because they're laying there licking their wounds by the time he's done. He gets them into this, they have a boom tube kind of a thing that's an elevator without actual floors. It just kind of vacuum tubes you around. Well, he goes up that. So one of them follows him, the druid, and he turns off the anti-gravity deal when he's midway. He falls 4 or 5 stories and splinters into 1,000,000 pieces. And there's Huntress down there at the bottom going, wow. Well, come on, Wildcat. Come on, kitty, kitty, kitty. You want to play? And then she goes, oh, crap. He took one of the, from the museum level, he's taken one of the granite statues of Red Tornado and pushed down the thing, smashes near her where she has to bound out of the way. And he's like, okay, I got the string, kitty. Let's play. And just one after the other, he takes them down. The one that comes closest to actually doing him some real hurt is Tigress. And it's a street level brawl. And, she is the daughter of Sportsmaster and Huntress. She's very tough on just a, street fighter level playing field. And she almost chokes him out. But he manages to come back from that. And the Golden Wasp, originally called the Yellow Wasp, was one of his villains also. And this is his protege. Is supposed to be his son that comes in, and he's got electrical powers. That's what takes out. He's struggling with being choked by Huntress, and he rolls into some. There's like water from one of the other things that he did there, and he's rolling in that, and she's with him, and Killer Wasp is like, I'm gonna zap you, and she's like, no, don't, because it's an electrical charge. Takes her out, he rolls out of the way. So now you got this guy that's got zappy powers. He's like, you know what the problem with you young guys are? You would never stand up in a knuckle duster. You got to zap, you got to blow, you got to fly. And this guy's like, oh, really? You think so, huh? I'll take you. Because my father knew about you, and he taught me, I learned how to box and to defend myself. Great. He finds out this kid is really a pretty good boxer. And so they go several rounds, and he's like, you think you're so tough. You think you've been around forever and a day. You're old. You're an old man. I'm young. You're old. And you think you're so much. You think you're so great. And Ted Grant sees the championship belt. He was the heavyweight champion for 20 years, undefeated. Only Rocky Marciano in the real world has ever done that. He goes, you think you're good? And he goes, no, kid, I know it. Wham. Knocked out. Johnny Sorrow comes out going, well, this is unexpected. All of his minions are down. And Wildcat's like, now you get ready to lick some lumps. This is a major mystical bad guy. He doesn't lick lumps, but hey, Wildcat's ready to take him on. And he goes, I see you're still in the game, Mr. Grant. That's good. This is only round one. And he takes his guys and he leaves. And so you have Wildcat here going, I wonder if Selena's still up. And so when everybody comes back, they're like, there was a real mess out here. What happened? Yeah, the Injustice Society came and they stole something out of the museum. I don't know. And it's like, well, what did you do? Well, I beat them all and then they left. Okay. And he's sitting there with this toothpick. He goes, well, all but one. And he's got the pieces of Blackfire throwing the druid and he's still, he's using him as a toothpick, basically. That's kind of, that was everything I could have ever wanted to see about what makes this character legitimate. Took all these powered characters and pitted them against each other, insulted them to the point where they made mistakes, used the building that he knew better than them against them. And this is why he was a heavyweight champion, just like Muhammad Ali, to look at somebody like George Foreman and figure out, here's what I got to do to beat somebody that maybe can punch harder than I can.
Yeah.
That's Wildcat.
That is perfect. I've read the issue. It's really good. It is Wildcat at his finest. So.
And he did it with a broken arm. So it was like, he's still got the cast on through all this. So
he's like, what? I'll beat you with one hand tied behind my back.
We got powers. I'm not impressed. I have, as far as the superhero game, he's always fought above his weight class.
Yep.
It does not intimidate him. And if you don't, it's sort of like when the White Martians said, we've killed all, we have incapacitated all of Justice League except Batman. And what do we have to worry about him? He's only a man. Oh, this is the time in your whole plan where you just turned a corner.
Anytime you underestimate.
You have made the wrong decision. And Wildcat is that guy that you go, I can't believe this old man showed up to punch me because I've obviously been punched. Monologue at your own peril, because he's not going to hold back and he's not going to be intimidated. And you have you have a feline fury that is a very street level, not happy cat.
Yes. Yes, for sure. I think that covers it. Is there anything else you want to say about Wildcat?
I got to show you, because there's not a lot of merch.
Show me the goods.
You got Wildcat from the Justice Society of America PVC collection. And you got him in HeroClix.
Nice.
I'm trying, there we go. It's really small. And
yeah, those HeroClix are tiny.
You've got the ones I made, and then both of our characters, because I wanted to do Captain Action as a Justice Society group. They had the Super Queens with Supergirl and Batgirl and stuff. So to make a Justice Society Captain Action, I made a 6th scale Black Canary and also a 6th scale. I did these years ago, but that's the dedication of being a B-list booster, is if they don't make it, well, you take what they do, you take the merch they do make and you turn it into what you want. So
those are amazing. Those are really good. Hopefully Wildcat will start getting more merch. I know I'm starting to go broke with all the Black Canary stuff out there. I'm not trying to brag and make you feel bad. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's okay. No, I've been a fan of hers, and I'm glad to see people have said that they know that I like Wildcat, and they're like, Oh, they turned Wildcat into a girl for the Stargirl show. No, Yolanda Montez is second generation Wildcat. And I'm glad to see the character, celebrated. She didn't last long in the comics, and I'm hoping that that's not the case for the TV show. Um, she's a legacy. I think in the comic books, spoiler alert, in the comic books of many, many years past, Yolanda Montez died being Wildcat. One of the Chuck Dixon things, you have somebody else that he was training as a boxer, and he found that he was Wildcat, and he goes, "I want to be the new Wildcat," and he's like, "No, you can't." Well, the kid stole one of his costumes and went out and tried to be Wildcat anyway, and he got killed. So this causes Ted Grant to come back to find out Killer Croc killed this other Wildcat. So you end up in the secret fight club. Before Roulette had a secret fight club, there was another secret fight club that pitted heroes and villains and villains and villains against each other. And so Ted Grant shows up to fight Killer Croc. And this is Chuck Dixon. He's a very good writer of street level kind of things, but I'm like, Killer Croc, Batman can face him because Batman's got a lot of tricks and toys. You're in a ring with Killer Croc and you're a god. You have my attention. I want to see how this pans out. And he beat Killer Croc mercilessly for killing the other Wildcat. When you have him written like that and made it seem like, oh yeah, that's what happened. He could, yes, he's got the amphibian hide, reptilian hide and stuff. If you know where to hit and you can punch really hard, it's, you're not stabbing through it. You're doing blunt force trauma to ribs that'll break just like anybody else's. And you know all about the anatomy and you know where to punch. You can really make it a bad day to be a reptilian guy. And he did. So those kind of moments are why I will forever be a Wildcat B-list booster.
Yes. And hopefully someday he'll end up on the A-list. I'm rooting for him.
He's on my list, so but yes, that would be
Mine
nice.
too.
If they did some flashbacks in Stargirl, maybe, and they showed, his Wildcat legacy. If they do him well and they don't make him just a brutish, hulking Neanderthal kind of boxer guy, because he's not. That guy would not have stood up to the Injustice Society like that. As long as they treat him well and make him smart, I'll be happy.
Which I think so far they've done a good job with the characters they have shown. So I have hope. Fingers crossed. Meanwhile, I know I promised to rant on the live action treatment of My Girl and Arrow, but I'm going to save that. That is going to be its whole other thing. That'll be a whole other thing. So other than that, anything else to share about Wildcat or other B-listers?
If we come back and do other shows, I have several. Nobody that I feel quite as I have cosplayed Wildcat, and I am not a boxer. Not a boxer, and
but you make a good Wildcat.
Well, thank you. I'd like to think I make like a good earlier one who was thinner and skinnier and more svelte and not quite, because the different people that have drawn him into the modern age, he's really ripped and I'm not. But I love him so much that I tried to make myself
the important thing.
I tried to make myself look as close as I could. And we still need to do a Justice Society cosplay shoot at some time.
Yes, that's happening as soon as we can get it all in the same place. Stupid COVID.
Yeah, post-COVID, it's one of our bucket list things, I think, now. And not everybody that wanted to be part of that is with us anymore. That's the sad part. So I think we kind of owe it. We really need to do that. Maybe if we don't do it this year, maybe next year as things become more normalized, we can make that come true. But I have a whole list. Nobody as much as Wildcat that I like as much as, but I have a lot of characters that I would love to see get more attention or get better treatment. So, and I know you
Yes.
have several too. So,
Oh yeah, definitely. We just start at the top with our favorites, which is as it should be.
and two that are connected. Not all of them would be necessarily be, but these two, they have a history together. And, so
One of my favorite comics relationships, because I don't know, I'm a sucker for adoptive family, found family stories. I'm such a sucker. So
well, and it kind of reflects our lives, because I think most people that are into comics and fantasy, a lot of times our families, maybe nothing against them, but maybe they weren't into that. So we have made our own families
yes.
through conventions and fandom and role play games and things like that. So yeah, there's a reflection of reality in that.
Oh, for sure. And like I tell people, you're my con dad, so
Yeah.
or my Uncle Ted. So if it's
I came to your marriage with your cosplay husband and
yes.
told him to treat you right.
Yes. And so far, so good.
Yeah. So
Well, thank you for doing this with me. This has been a lot of fun.
thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it. And any chance to talk about Wildcat at length and just on and on, yes, I'm there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. All of you out there, let us know what your B-list favorites are. I would love to hear. I really.
So remember, until next time, don't be a bore. Find a great, underrated, underappreciated character, a B-lister, and do be a B-list booster.
Yes.